Welcome to Rugby Chat for yet another year.
Right, welcome to ODG Rugby Chat for another year. Look, I'm down at Highlanders headquarters. I'm with Big Jake Joseph. Just coming out a bit of a chat, see how pre-season's going. Haven't got a game this weekend, but massive game here in Dunedin down at Four Bars Stadium next week. I think we can still call it Four Bars Stadium, even though apparently soccer's taking over and they're changing the name of the stadium. But hey, that's yet to come. So 21st, next Saturday week. So Jake, let's just talk about that first. How much of a pain is it that everybody else is kicking off and you guys have got to sit on your thumbs for another week?
Yeah, well, we've known about it. So the fact that we've known about it, we've put some plans in place to make sure that we don't waste a week. I sort of made comment that we can't have a week off at the start of the season. So what we've done is we've played 3 pre-season games, which we've done okay.
Yep.
1 week of that was in Australia, so we got on tour and we got quite tight on tour. This was a week where the All Blacks were coming back in, so we've had to work quite hard Monday and Tuesday.
And that's because they haven't been with the squad up till now.
Yeah. So we could have taken them to Australia and all they would have done is train in Aussie, so decided to leave them behind. We had one of our strength and conditioning guys here, put them under the pump. So they've had 3 weeks, I guess, of pre-season training, with the other guys have had 8 or 9 weeks. So the game on, we are going to have a head out tomorrow night. It just gives those guys an opportunity to play, get their hands wet, so to speak.
So what is it? So what actually? So this hit out you're doing? You're just using your squad plus your train on squad and a few other players. So you actually play a game? Would you?
Yeah, we are playing a game.
Right.
So for the first, we're going to play in third. So the first third is going to be a game of rugby where the All Blacks participate.
Yep.
And we see that happening the same thing. We're going to have communication to the referee. So if we want to move a set piece from
somewhere
out of our half to
right
up the line about 10 metres, we've got that ability.
Yep.
Whether we use it or not is another thing.
So look, hold on. In your whole pre-season, you played one game. I think you played the Crusaders early on, and then you've played these 2 games in Aussie. You've played the Rebels and the Brumbies. Mate, I hear there was a few injuries. Was Buckman's knee? Was Buckman okay?
No, he hasn't played and hasn't trained. He came back from training post Christmas because he injured his knee in the Hawke's Bay semi-final.
So it was way back then.
Yeah, so he came back and then Big Muffy Fair landed on him and twisted his knee. So
Typical problem.
Yeah. So what's an occupational hazard? So
yeah.
He's he was down for a little bit. He's up now. But he is out for the next sort of 3 or 4 games.
Would he be a most serious injury at this stage?
Yeah.
I hear he had a few concussions. How are they looking? I think the boys were saying Fia, Hona, Trevi all had concussion. Was that not too serious?
Yep, they look okay. They should. They're all going to participate tomorrow.
Yep.
Shane Christie's probably the next best. He pulled a hammy last week against the Rebels.
So he's out for how long?
And so he won't be out. He won't be available tomorrow night. But
right.
We're hoping he's available for next week.
Game, so come next week, we're talking about the Crusaders. So come next week. The All Blacks available for that game? Or are we still resting some?
No, all guys are available.
So both Smith boys will be in the gun to start, hopefully.
Yeah.
Right. And so all your All Blacks are playing. Feketawas, he's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. So look, is it a massive advantage though? Because Canterbury the Crusaders are going to turn around and they're going to play whoever they're playing tomorrow, whoever they're playing this weekend. They're a game ahead of you. Are you behind it from the off?
Yeah. Well, look, I hope not. I guess you have to measure that after the game. But in terms of our preparation, we've done exactly all we could do.
Yep.
And I think we've had a really good build-up for this game against Crusaders. But the Crusaders won of a lot of games.
Yeah.
And, it's a build-up for us. But really, the Super Rugby competition, it's a marathon, mate.
So let's talk about that draw. Because, from a marketer's point of view, we've been moaning about it, saying it's really, really tough because you've got to bye week 1. You play a couple of games, then you're away for a couple of weeks, then you have that whole big rash of games here in a row, and then we basically don't see you to the end of the season. How do you treat that? Do you treat that as a 2 or 3 part program, or is it? Do you worry too much about the draw being home or away?
First of all, look at the draw in totality and split that into. So we've got 5 seasons this year. We've gone through our pre-season and another season. The 6 games at home for a coach and the rugby team is probably a good thing.
Yeah.
Because we get to play at home. Marketing, financial return, etc. sort of doesn't come into my thinking.
Right. They got to pay your wages, though.
Yeah, but my job is to go to football, mate.
But does that put pressure on you? That game, that spell of games at home, when you know it's pretty crucial to win your home games, does that put more pressure on you to win those games?
Yeah, it could do. But I look at the Crusaders in the year that they had the earthquake and they played all their footy in Nelson, and I guess all the touring and thrown from Nelson to Christchurch actually brought that team together quite well.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping that does the same for us.
Right. So let's talk about some of the players. I mean, it's very interesting. You've lost quite a few players. You're bringing a few older guys into your team. You bring your Alex Ainsleys and your Ross Gowdenhoses of the world. These boys are in their 30s. Is there sort of thinking? What was sort of thinking behind that? Or you weren't worried about age?
No, I think the situation that we found ourselves in selection is we lost 3 experienced locks who've all played a lot of rugby: Hoiata, Thorne and Beckuis.
Yep.
In their meal, Chris King went away. So there's a lot of experience. So my view around that is that we had to get some experience when we lost those 4 guys.
So that you deliberately went out and targeted guys that are sort of more journeyman rugby players that have played a lot of rugby, played a lot of code.
First of all, we needed to cover those positions, and they played bloody well in the ITM Cup. Tasman were second team in the ITM. That's the feeder for us.
Yep.
And both those 2 guys that you mentioned, Alex and Ross, played big seasons for those guys. So quite easy selection for us.
And what about your front? So what do you where are you at with your whole front row situation? You've brought another couple of boys in. You brought Ash Dixon in from Hawke's Bay. You brought one of the Bay Plenty props in. And that was becoming hard for us later last year because we had a few injury problems. Are you okay with where you are, hookers and props?
Yep, I think that's an area where tomorrow night is going to be interesting.
Yep.
We're very competitive up front.
So have you sort of decided on are you at a starting 15 for that year, or are you still working that through?
No, so I would say our type 5 is probably on both sides because of the fact that they are really experienced. Yep. So we've got on one side we're going to have 5 guys that play a lot of rugby at Super Rugby level, and on the other side you've got the same. Yep. So it's competitive. So
locks again. I mean, you made with Jared going and Beck was going. You bought locks. Are we tall enough at lock?
I don't know. You just got to get line out, Paul.
Yeah.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I'll tell you what we are. We wouldn't be as tall as a Brodie Retallick or a Sam Whitelock, but mobility, agility, tackle, the clean, the carry, and line out ball. They're all pretty competent.
So you're pretty happy with that. Okay, so other area, obviously loose forwards, we're always wrong.
Yeah, well, I think our open side flanker with Shane and John Hardy and Lee Allen, they're all proven at this level. The first 2 more so because they've more experience. Always the tough selection anyway.
Yeah.
Our sixes, I think we've bolstered those, and Elliot Dixon is maturing quite nicely into a seasoned professional.
Yeah.
Dan Pry had a big season for the Northland team, and the showings that what he showed in the first 2 or 3 games has been pretty good. So another competitive spot.
So what about halfback? Because you've only named. I know you've got train on halfbacks in your train on squad, and I think you've got 2, but so you're only taking 2 halfbacks, and there's a lot. I mean, it's obviously a big year for Aaron Smith this year. I mean, the All Blacks selectors imagine they'd have absolute kittens if he got injured this year.
Yeah, well, we probably would too.
Exactly the same.
Yeah. The Fumi's here.
Yep.
He's experienced, 29.
Is he back, Fumi?
Yep, he's arrived. He's outside there. Josh Renton is our protege. He sort of comes into the wider group, gets an opportunity.
Is he getting there, you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think he
Brownie's in love with him.
Yeah, I think he got a bit of flack last year, but he's only a kid, mate. Like he's only 20.
Yeah, he's young.
So just imagine when he's 22.
So backline? What the rest of the backline? I think you're not bad. You'd be pretty happy with where you're at. You've got plenty of first 5 depth.
Right over the team, I'm quite happy with what we've selected, and they've come together really well. We've lost some players, and Burley was a big loss for us.
Yep.
He's sort of many eyes a journeyman, but for us he was quite a crucial part of our team.
And he played a lot of spots for you too.
Yeah, he did, and he could cover. So Jason Emery is now 3 years into a Super Rugby. Sean Treby's obviously been around. Malachi. Look, if we can keep everyone injury free, we're okay.
What about out wide? You got enough pace out wide?
Osborne, Naholo, Tongia, Baker.
Obviously, Tongi's, we picked him up because he's quick.
Yeah, they were all quick guys. Osborne and Naholo. Watch out for those 3 guys. They're pretty in the pre-season. If you take the form of the pre-season, they're pretty solid.
Pretty strong.
Yeah.
And Bender will just fit back in.
Yeah, well, we hope so, yeah.
So what happens? So we're still going with co-captains this year?
Yep.
So you think that's working for you?
Well, I think it's working for them.
Right.
I think, it's the 9 and the 10 are in the game for us. The decisions from the captains evident when the game slows down. But it's a long season and it's a big burden on one person, I feel. So
Right.
to be able to share that off the field is good.
I mean, I thought I might as well ask you may not have thought about it, but with the advent of hopefully the Singaporeans coming on board, does that open more opportunities for you guys if they do come on board?
I haven't really put a lot of thought to it,
Haven't you?
Paul, in terms of how that would affect the rugby side of things. What I do know is that we lack real resources to develop our players and develop our coaches and our management team.
Yep.
So the thought of having an owner and then the owner being able to provide those resources is positive.
That might help.
Yeah.
You might have to play the odd game in Singapore. I imagine that'll be part of what they're asking for. Does that affect you guys too much?
Oh, I haven't put any thought to it.
Right.
Good nasi goreng.
Right. Right. So look. So let's just finish off on that. Let's just finish off on this game next week. So it's a big game. 21st, 7:35 here at the stadium. We had over 20,000. I think we had 2021 last year. I know the Boffins next door, Clarkey and Kerr and Co. have budgeted for 17. But it's a big weekend for sport here next week with the World Cup cricket. I think that'll be a bonus for us rather than a hindrance.
Yeah.
We'd get over 20,000 that game, wouldn't we?
Well, I hope so. I mean,
What's the sort of feeling
games,
you're getting being around the province and doing that sort of stuff?
Yeah, I think everyone's looking forward. I think this weekend, the fact that we haven't got rugby down here is not necessarily a bad thing for what you're talking about.
Yep.
To get the games out there, then there's an awareness that Super Rugby has started, and we get a home game, all the students are starting. We're hoping for a big crowd because that really helps us as a team.
Well, because you've got orientation week next week, so it's a big week in town. You've got
Yeah.
cricket on Tuesday, you've got cricket on Sunday and the following Tuesday. There's a lot of buzz around. It's a pretty exciting time. So look, I'm sort of hoping we'd get 20,000 to that game. So look, I know it's going to be tough because they'll have already played a game, but we certainly owe them one. I'm still getting over that try from last year. I see the ads the ODT been running have got Patrick Osborne scoring that try. Is there anything about that in the build up to the game? We owe them one. It's a bit of revenge, or is it more about what we do?
No, it's more about what we do. To be fair, it's that game was a game that in some parts of it we were dead and gone, and then
Yep.
the team showed big ticket to come back and should have snatched that one.
Yep.
Look at the selection of the Crusader team this weekend. It's full of All Blacks.
I see Richie McCaw's in, get a crank him out.
They're not mucking around. So yeah, that's good for our team because every rugby player wants to put themselves against the best, so they'll get that opportunity next week, mate.
Right, mate. So look, you're pretty confident going into. Let's not do predictions at the start of the year, but you're pretty confident that we'll put on a good show and we can tip these Crusader boys over.
Yeah, look. We're going to prepare well. We've had a good week this week. We get through tomorrow night without any injuries and some good performances. That's going to put pressure on us as coaches to pick the right side. And we're really confident with the players and our whole preparation. But so are they. Their preparation is going to be pretty good. We've just got to get out there and perform.
Right, mate. Thanks, Jake. And just remember, next week, 21st, 7:35 down at the stadium. Make sure you get along. Get your tickets in early. Get your tickets. We expect a crowd of over 20,000 here. Let's get in and support this Highlanders team, and let's hope they make that top 6 again this year. Cheers, and we'll talk to you next week.